Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Her Smile. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video.
I'm Maya Rodriguez. I'm 26. And the day my family laughed at me for being just a nurse, they had no idea I'd been secretly buying up their debts for the past 2 years. They called me the poor one, the failure, the girl who wasted her brain on bedpans and blood pressure checks instead of becoming a doctor like my brother. What they didn't know? I owned their house, their cars, their business, everything. And I was about to foreclose on all of it. But before I tell you how I became my family's landlord without them knowing, hit that like button. Because this gets absolutely insane. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let's get into it. Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' Miami penthouse. 12 family members crammed around a table that probably cost more than I made in 6 months as an ICU nurse. The table was set with china my mother insisted was irreplaceable. Crystal glasses that caught the light from a chandelier that cost more than my annual rent. Flowers arranged by someone who charged $800 for the privilege. Everything designed to scream wealth, status, success. And there, I sat in my Target sweater and discount jeans, hair in a simple ponytail, no jewelry except my grandmother's silver necklace. The only thing of value I owned that actually mattered. My mother, Isabel, had been making comments all evening about my scrubs. Maya, you're 26 years old, still wearing those outfits to work every day. She said it like I worked at a fast food restaurant, like nursing was beneath her. Still wiping butts for a living? My Uncle Roberto chimed in, laughing into his wine. When are you going to do something real with your life? My brother Carlos sat across from me, custom-tailored suit, Rolex catching the candlelight, that superior smile he'd perfected since medical school. Some people are meant for greatness, Maya, he said, cutting his turkey with surgical precision. Others are meant for support roles. He paused. Let it sink in. You're good at following orders. That's valuable. In its place. Everyone around the table nodded. Agreement, validation. The family consensus that I was the failure, the one who didn't measure up. My sister Lucia flipped her hair extensions. She ran a luxury wellness spa, basically a glorified yoga studio where rich people paid $500 to drink overpriced juice and pretend they were finding themselves. At least I'm an entrepreneur, she said, her voice carrying across the table, building something, creating jobs, not just collecting a paycheck from someone else's vision. She leaned forward, her designer bracelets jangling. You know what your problem is, Maya? You're not a risk taker. You play it safe. That's why you'll always be basic. Dad nodded approvingly. That's initiative. That's the Rodriguez spirit. We're builders, creators, not followers, not employees. The irony was suffocating, because sitting there, listening to them lecture me about success and risk and building, I knew something they didn't. I knew exactly how much debt they were drowning in. I knew their businesses were failing. I knew their wealth was a facade held together by credit and arrogance. And I knew that I owned them, completely, totally, irreversibly. But let me back up. Let me tell you how this started. Because it didn't happen overnight. This was 2 years of planning, of saving, of waiting for exactly the right moment. It started the Thanksgiving before this one. Same penthouse, same family, same mockery. Carlos had just bought his boat, $280,000, financed of course. But he made it sound like he'd paid cash, bragged about taking it to the Bahamas, about the marina membership, about living the life he'd earned. Lucia had just opened her spa. She went on and on about the investment she'd made, the sacrifices, how she was building generational wealth. Dad talked about his latest development project, a condo complex in Brickell. 50 units, 30 million total. He made it sound like he was the next Trump, and they all looked at me, the nurse, the one making $68,000 a year, the one who drove a 12-year-old Honda, the one who lived with 2 roommates to save money. Maya, Mom had said that night, her voice dripping with concern. When are you going to stop living like a college student? You're 24. Time to grow up. Get a nicer car, a better apartment. Actually enjoy life. I am enjoying life, I'd said quietly. Carlos snorted. Enjoying life in scrubs and a beat-up car? That's not enjoying life. That's surviving. There's a difference. That night, lying in my shared apartment in my $600 a month room, I made a decision. I pulled up my bank account. $147,000 saved. Every penny from 4 years of nursing, every extra shift, every holiday I'd worked, every dollar I hadn't spent on the things they thought mattered. And I thought, what if I could use this differently? What if I could turn their arrogance against them? The next morning, I went to the hospital for my shift. One of my patients was dying. Stage 4 cancer. Peaceful about it. Accepting. His son, Marcus Chen, sat by his bedside. We talked during the quiet moments about life, about choices, about what matters. What do you do? I asked him one night during a vitals check. Financial analyst, he said. I specialize in distressed debt, buying and restructuring failing obligations. I stopped, looked at him. Distressed debt? Yeah, when companies or people can't pay their loans, banks sell those loans for pennies on the dollar. I buy them, restructure them, sometimes make money, sometimes just cut my losses. My mind started racing. Can individuals do that? He looked up, interested. You mean buy debt? Sure, if you have capital and know what you're doing. Why? Over the next week, as his father passed peacefully, Marcus and I talked. About my family, about their businesses, about their debts. Your dad's company, Marcus said one day, pulling up his laptop. Rodriguez Development. They're on my watch list. They have over $2 million in bank debt that's about to be classified as distressed. My heart stopped. What does that mean? It means the bank is about to sell it. They want it off their books. Someone could buy it for maybe 30 to 40 cents on the dollar. I did the math. So $2 million in debt could be bought for around $800,000? Roughly. Maybe less if you negotiate. And then what? Then you own that debt. You become the creditor. You can call it due, restructure it, foreclose if they don't pay, whatever the original contract allowed. I stared at him. And this is legal? Completely. Banks do it every day. Debt buyers do it every day. It's a normal part of the financial system. That's when the plan started forming. I started researching, spent my nights off studying debt markets, learning about how loans get sold, how to create LLCs, how to structure deals. Marcus introduced me to his network, lawyers who specialized in debt acquisition, accountants who understood the tax implications, investors who might put up capital if the deal was solid. Within 3 months, I had a plan. Within 6 months, I had partners. Within a year, I'd started buying. My first purchase was small, a $15,000 credit card debt my dad had defaulted on. I bought it for $4,000, just to test the process, to make sure I could do it. I sent him a notice through my LLC. He paid it immediately. Never knew it was me. That's when I knew it would work. Over the next year, I systematically bought every piece of debt I could find. His business loans, Mom's boutique lease, Carlos's gambling debts from offshore bookmakers, Lucia's spa financing. I used my $147,000. Marcus invested $100,000 of his own money. We brought in 3 other investors for another $450,000. Total war chest, about $700,000. We bought $2.8 million in face value debt for that amount, about 25 cents on the dollar. The penthouse mortgage, I bought it from a seller who was liquidating real estate loans, got it for $320,000. It was worth $890,000. Carlos's gambling debts? Offshore accounts were desperate to sell. I got $340,000 in debt for $85,000. Everything done through shell companies, different names, different addresses, professional services that made it impossible to trace back to me. For 2 years, I quietly collected, documented, prepared, and they had no idea. Because they were too busy being successful to notice that their financial foundation was crumbling. They were too busy mocking my Honda to realize I was building an empire. Too busy laughing at my scrubs to see that I was buying their futures. Too busy looking down on me to notice I was about to become their landlord, their creditor, their owner. If you think they saw this coming, you're wrong. Stay with me, because what I'm about to do will change everything. Hit subscribe right now. You don't want to miss this revenge. Lucia was going on about her spa's expansion plans, aka more money from Dad. We're opening a second location in Coral Gables, she announced. Premium clientele only, $10,000 minimum membership. Carlos snorted. That's cute. I just bought a boat, 42-footer, keeping it at the marina. More debt, I thought. The boat was financed. I knew because I owned that loan too. Mom beamed at them. This is what success looks like, Maya. Building wealth. Taking risks. Not playing it safe with some nursing job. Dad raised his glass. To my successful children, Carlos and Lucia, the ones who made something of themselves. He didn't toast to me, didn't even look at me. That's when my phone buzzed. Text from Marcus. Paperwork filed. They'll get notices tomorrow. Are you sure about this? I texted back. Absolutely. I stood up. Everyone looked at me like I was interrupting something important. I have an announcement, I said calmly. Lucia rolled her eyes. What, you're finally going back to school? Becoming a real doctor? No, I said, I'm calling in some debts. Confusion rippled around the table. I pulled out my tablet, opened a folder, started reading. Rodriguez Development LLC, outstanding balance, 2.3 million creditor, Rodriguez Holdings. That's me. Dad's face went white. What are you talking about? The penthouse we're sitting in. Mortgage balance, $890,000. Lender, Miami Property Trust, also me. Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. Carlos Rodriguez, various personal loans and gambling debts totaling $340,000. Current holder, Chen Financial Services. My business partner, Marcus. Carlos shot to his feet. That's impossible. Lucia Rodriguez. Spa business loans totaling $215,000, held by Wellness Capital Group, also mine. I looked up from the tablet, smiled. Over the past 2 years, I've quietly purchased every significant debt this family has, through shell companies and third parties, legal, documented, ironclad. The silence was deafening. You? Dad's voice came out strangled. You did this. Me, the nurse, the failure, the one who wasted her brain. I set down the tablet. Turns out, saving money and making smart investments beats spending money you don't have. Mom found her voice. This is a joke, some sick joke. No joke. I pulled out a stack of papers, actual legal documents. These are all the promissory notes, mortgages, and loan agreements. All stamped, all official, all mine. I slid them across the table. Dad's hands shook as he picked them up, flipped through them, saw his signature, his company name. Everything legitimate. How? Was all he could say. When banks sell distressed debt, they don't care who buys it, I explained. They just want it off their books. So I bought yours, at a discount, with money I saved by being cheap while you were being successful. Now pause. Drop a like if you think what happens next is justified, and comment. Would you do the same thing, or am I going too far? Let me know. Lucia's face had gone from tan to gray. You can't do this. We're family. Family? I laughed. You just spent the last hour mocking everything about my life, my job, my choices, my existence, because I didn't fit your definition of success. Carlos tried his lawyer voice. This is predatory lending. We'll sue. You'll lose, I interrupted. I had 3 different law firms review everything. It's all legal. You signed the documents. You took the money. And now I own those obligations. I stood up, picked up my tablet. So here's what's going to happen. Starting Monday, you're all going to start making payments. To me, real payments. Not the minimum, not the delayed payments you've been getting away with. Dad, your company owes me $2.3 million. I want a payment plan. 60 months. $38,000 per month. Plus interest. Or I start foreclosure proceedings. His face was purple. He couldn't speak. The penthouse? Either you pay the full mortgage every month, $7,200, or I foreclose. You have 30 days to decide if you want to keep living here. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Maya, please. Carlos, your gambling debts? $340,000. I want it paid back in 48 months. That's about $7,000 a month. And you're going to stop gambling. I have the right to audit your accounts. It's in the contract you signed with the original lender. He looked like he might vomit. Lucia, your spa, $15,000 owed. You're going to actually make it profitable, or I'm shutting it down and selling the assets. You have 6 months to show positive cash flow. She started crying. I can't do that. It's impossible. Then you shouldn't have borrowed money you couldn't pay back, I said flatly. Real entrepreneurs understand basic math. I walked toward the door, the whole family sitting in shocked silence. Oh, and one more thing, I said, turning back. This meal, the turkey, the sides, the wine, everything, I'm billing you for it. Because this is my penthouse now, you're eating in my house, as my guests. And guests should contribute. I smiled. Happy Thanksgiving. I walked out, got in my beat-up Honda, drove to my tiny apartment, and felt free for the first time in years. If you're still here, thank you. Drop a like if justice was served. Comment if you've ever had to teach your family a lesson. Subscribe because this story isn't over yet. The aftermath was beautiful, brutal, exactly what they deserved. Monday morning, 3 days after Thanksgiving, the letters arrived. Certified mail, return receipt requested, all delivered by the same postal carrier to different addresses across Miami. Dad got his at the office. The notice of default on his business loans. The letter explained that Rodriguez Holdings, LLC, was now his primary creditor and demanded immediate restructuring of his payment schedule. He called me 17 times that first day. I didn't answer. Let him sweat. Mom's letter arrived at the penthouse. Noticed that the mortgage had been transferred to a new lender, Miami Property Trust, and that new payment terms were being enforced. Late fees that had been waived by the previous lender, no longer waived. She texted me, "What have you done?" I didn't respond. Carlos got his notice during surgery. His assistant brought it to him in the OR. He had to step out mid-procedure. His colleague finished up. The letter outlined his $340,000 in debt. Every gambling site he'd used, every offshore account, every loan he thought was anonymous, all documented, all owned by me now. He threw up in the surgical suite bathroom. Lucia's notice was delivered to her spa, in front of clients, in front of staff. The humiliation she'd spent years dishing out to me came back tenfold. The letter gave her 6 months to show positive cash flow or face immediate asset seizure. She closed early that day, sent her staff home, sat alone in her overpriced meditation room and cried. That evening, they all showed up at my apartment. Together, a united front of panic and rage. I watched through my peephole as they argued about who should knock first, who should do the talking, how to handle me. Finally, Dad knocked. Hard. Angry knocks. I opened the door, didn't invite them in. How could you do this? Mom's voice was shrill. Her perfect composure cracked completely. We're your family. I know, I said calmly. You remind me every Thanksgiving, usually while mocking my job. Dad tried his authoritative voice. This is extortion. We'll go to the police, the FBI, someone. Please do, I said. I'd love to watch them explain that buying legal debt at market rates is somehow illegal. My lawyers would enjoy that case. Carlos pushed forward. Maya, I'm your brother. I'm sorry for what I said. Can we please work this out? You're not sorry for what you said, I replied. You're sorry you're caught. There's a difference. Lucia was crying again. She was always crying now. I can't pay this. I don't have the money. Then you shouldn't have borrowed it, I said simply. Welcome to capitalism. Isn't that what Dad always taught us? Leverage, risk, reward, consequence. Dad's face went red. You're destroying this family. No, I corrected. I'm holding you accountable. That's not the same thing. I pulled out my phone, showed them an app. This is your payment portal. You each have a login. You can see your balances, your payment schedules, your due dates, everything transparent. I swiped to another screen, and this is the late fee schedule. Miss a payment by even 1 day, 18% penalty on that month's payment. Miss by a week, the entire remaining balance can be called due immediately. Mom gasped. That's usurious. That's the contract you signed with the original lender, I said. I'm just enforcing the terms that already existed. Maybe you should have read the fine print. I started to close the door. You have 5 days until your first payments are due. I suggest you figure out how to make them. Wait, Dad grabbed the door. Can we at least talk about this? Negotiate? Negotiate? I raised an eyebrow. Like you negotiated with me about my career choices, my life, my value? No, Dad. You made your decisions. Now live with them. I closed the door, locked it, stood there listening to them argue in the hallway for 20 minutes before they finally left. That was day 1. By day 5, payment deadline, only Carlos had paid. He liquidated his investment account, sold his boat for less than it was worth, borrowed from his soon-to-be ex-wife's family, scraped together the $7,000. Dad missed his payment. Couldn't get $38,000 together that fast. I activated the late fee. $6,140 added to his balance. Plus, I sent a notice of default to the court, starting the foreclosure process on his business. He called me, voice breaking. Please, I need more time, just 30 days. You had 30 days, I said. You spent it trying to intimidate me instead of liquidating assets. Your choice, your consequence. What assets? He shouted. Everything's mortgaged, everything's borrowed. I know, I said. I own most of those mortgages too. That's my point, Dad. You built a house of cards. I'm just the wind that blew it down. Mom made her $7,200 payment 2 days late. The $96 late fee. She screamed at me over the phone for an hour about how unfair it was. You know what's unfair? I finally interrupted. Working double shifts at the hospital while your family laughs at your profession. Saving every penny while they spend money they don't have. That's unfair. This is just business. Lucia didn't pay. Couldn't pay. Didn't even have $2,000. I sent a notice to her spa. 30 days to vacate or face eviction. Her lease was with a landlord who'd already agreed to sell me the space for $180,000. She would lose everything she'd built. The meditation rooms, the juice bar, the boutique she'd filled with $50 crystals, all of it. She showed up at my hospital, found me during my shift, made a scene in the ICU. You're killing my dream, she screamed. You're destroying my business. Security came. I stayed calm, professional, let them escort her out. Later, my supervisor called me in. Maya, is everything okay? Your sister seemed distressed. Family issues, I said. She's upset about some financial matters. I'm handling it. Do you need time off? No, I said. I need to finish my shift. Mrs. Rodriguez in bed 7 needs her medication adjusted. Mr. Chen in bed 3 needs his vitals checked every hour. That's what I need to focus on. My supervisor smiled. You're one of our best nurses, Maya. Whatever's happening with your family, don't let it affect your calling. I won't, I promised. And I didn't. Because nursing mattered. Saving lives mattered. Being there for people who needed help mattered. My family? They'd chosen to need help. They'd created their own emergency, and I was the only one who could save them. But unlike my patients, they had to want to be saved. Week 2, Dad's company officially entered default. I filed foreclosure paperwork. The court approved it. Rodriguez Development LLC had 60 days to pay the full balance or face asset seizure. He couldn't pay. The company generated maybe $40,000 a month in revenue. After expenses, salaries, everything, maybe $10,000 net. He'd need almost $200,000 just to catch up. He tried to get investors, but word had spread in Miami's real estate community. Rodriguez was over-leveraged, underwater, sinking. No one wanted in. He tried to get loans, but his credit was destroyed. Every bank ran his name and saw the same thing: high debt, declining revenue, default proceedings. He was finished. Week 3, I attended the asset auction. Rodriguez Development LLC's equipment, furniture, files, client contracts, everything for sale to the highest bidder. I sat in the back row, watched buyers pick over my father's business like vultures on a carcass. The architectural software he'd bragged about sold for $800, worth $15,000 new. His custom desk, $300. His client list, a competitor bought it for $5,000. Those clients would get calls tomorrow offering to complete their projects with a new firm. Dad stood in the corner, watching, broken. His business of 25 years dismantled in 2 hours. He saw me as I was leaving. Our eyes met. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded. Acknowledgement, respect for his pain, but no mercy. He'd shown me no mercy when I told him I wanted to be a nurse instead of a doctor, when I chose caring for people over making money, when I picked compassion over status. Now he understood. The world is not kind to people who build on debt and arrogance. Carlos's divorce finalized in week 4. His wife got custody of their daughter. He got visitation every other weekend and a $3,000 monthly child support obligation. Combined with his $7,000 monthly payment to me, he was left with about $8,000 a month from his $220,000 annual salary. He had to move out of his luxury condo. Couldn't afford the $4,500 rent anymore? He found a 2-bedroom apartment in Hialeah, $600 a month. No doorman, no valet, no prestige. The surgeon who'd looked down on my nursing career was now living like a regular person. I saw him once at the hospital. He was consulting on a case. I was the primary nurse. We had to work together, professional, cold, necessary. Blood pressure? He asked. 142/88, I reported. Increase the medication, he ordered. Already done, I said. I adjusted it 20 minutes ago per the standing protocol. He looked at me, really looked, saw that I wasn't just following orders. I was thinking ahead, making clinical decisions, doing exactly what good nurses do. Good work, he said quietly. I nodded, went back to my patient. He left the room. I heard later he sat in his car in the parking lot for an hour, just sat there, processing. His little sister, the support role nurse, knew her job better than he'd ever acknowledged, was better at patient care than he'd ever admitted, had always been his equal, just in a different arena. The realization apparently broke something in him. Lucia's spa closed in week 6, couldn't make payroll, couldn't pay rent, couldn't generate enough revenue to cover basic costs. She had to fire her 5 employees, face each of them, explain that the spa they'd believed in was over. Some of them cried. They'd quit better jobs to work there, believed in her vision. Now they were unemployed because she'd borrowed money she couldn't repay to build something that couldn't sustain itself. The last day she stood in the empty space. No furniture, no equipment, just bare walls and shattered dreams. She called me. Are you happy now? No, I said honestly, but I'm not unhappy either. I lost everything. You lost a business that never worked, I corrected. You still have your health, your freedom, your ability to start over. That's more than some people get. How can you be so cold? I'm not cold, I said. I'm realistic. You spent years building something on other people's money. It collapsed. That's not cold. That's math. She hung up. The penthouse eviction happened in week 8. Sheriff came, posted the notice. 72 hours to vacate. Mom called me sobbing. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I said. Where do people go when they can't afford their housing? Maybe ask one of the retail workers you look down on. They've been figuring that out their whole lives. You're cruel. I'm honest, I corrected. There's a difference. They moved into that 2-bedroom apartment in Kendall. All 4 of them. Parents in one room. Carlos and Lucia sharing the other like children. No view, no marble, no prestige, just basic living. Mom got a job at Nordstrom, part-time, selling handbags and asking about store credit cards. The woman who'd spent 30 years shopping there was now working there. Her friends came in sometimes, saw her behind the counter. The humiliation in her eyes was visible even from across the store. Dad took a job as a sales manager at a competing development firm, making $85,000 a year. Good money, but a fraction of what he'd pretended to make running his own company. He had to learn to answer to a boss, take orders, follow someone else's vision. Everything he'd claimed was beneath him. Meanwhile, I renovated the penthouse, gut renovation, $180,000 investment, made it modern, beautiful, better than it ever was under their ownership. Rented it to a tech executive for $9,500 a month. Pure profit since I'd bought the mortgage for $320,000, and it was worth $890,000. I used those profits to buy more distressed debt, more properties, built a real portfolio. Marcus and I expanded. Chen Rodriguez Capital officially launched. We had $5 million in deals the first year, helping other people buy debt, build wealth. Do exactly what I'd done. We hired staff, got an office, became a real company. Not a fantasy, a real business generating real revenue, solving real problems. And I kept nursing, 3 12-hour shifts a week, because it mattered, because people needed care, because my patients didn't care about my investment portfolio. They cared that I showed up, that I knew my job, that I gave a damn. One of my patients asked me once, "Why do you still work here? You seem like you could do anything." "Because this matters," I said simply. Making money matters, but saving lives matters more. I can do both. She smiled. Understood. Some people get it. A year after that Thanksgiving, I had a portfolio worth $3.2 million, real estate, debt instruments, cash flow properties, built from smart decisions and other people's mistakes. I still drove my Honda, still lived in my small apartment, still wore scrubs to work. But I was wealthy, truly wealthy. The kind of wealth that builds, that grows, that lasts. Not the fake wealth of leased cars and mortgaged houses and borrowed status. Real wealth, the kind you can't lose by being stupid. My family? They struggled, barely got by, lived month to month on actual salaries instead of borrowed money. Dad tried to apologize once, 6 months after losing everything. "Maya, I was wrong. You're smarter than all of us. Can we work something out? Reduce the debt? Family discount?" I actually laughed. "You want a family discount? From the daughter you toasted right past? The one who wasn't successful enough to mention?" Silence on the line. "Here's your family discount, Dad. I'm not charging late fees anymore unless you're more than 30 days behind. That's your discount. Enjoy it." I hung up. Carlos never apologized. Too proud. But I see him sometimes. Hospital events, staff meetings. He can't look at me. Can't face the truth that the little sister he mocked owns part of his financial life. Lucia sent an email, long, rambling, about jealousy and insecurity and how she was sorry. I read it. Didn't respond. Some things don't need response. Mom tried the relationship repair thing. "Can we have coffee? Talk? Start over?" "We can have coffee," I said, "but there's no starting over. There's only moving forward. And right now, forward means you make your payments and I live my life." We never had that coffee, but here's what I learned, what I want you to understand. This wasn't revenge. Not really. Revenge is doing harm for the sake of harm, making people hurt because you hurt. This was accountability. This was consequences. This was the natural result of their choices. They chose to borrow more than they could repay. They chose to build businesses on debt instead of revenue. They chose to spend money they didn't have on status they couldn't afford. They chose to mock someone who was making different, smarter choices. I just gave them what they already earned. So here's my question for you. What are you building while others doubt you? What empire are you creating that they can't see yet? Tell me in the comments. Share your story, because you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been mocked, if you've ever been told you weren't enough. I have more stories. Stories of people who got written off, who got laughed at, who came back stronger than anyone expected. Thank you for being here, for listening, for understanding that success isn't about looking rich. It's about being smart. Remember, build quiet, build smart, build real. The people mocking you today might be working for you tomorrow. Now go build your empire. And to my family, if you're watching, your January payment is due in 3 days. Your balance is on the portal. Thank you for your continued business. I'll see you in the next story. But here's what I want you to understand. This wasn't about revenge. Not really. This was about respect. About showing people that success isn't about looking rich. It's about being smart, being patient, building real value instead of fake status. They judged me based on my job title, my car, my clothes, surface things that meant nothing. While I was building an empire they couldn't see, because they were too busy looking down to see what I was building up. So let me ask you, what are you building that people can't see yet? What are you working on while others doubt you? Tell me in the comments. What dream are you chasing? What are you saving for? What empire are you building in secret? Drop it below. I read every comment. I want to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated because of your job or your choices, hit that subscribe button. Because I have more stories. Stories of people who got underestimated, who got mocked, and who came back stronger than anyone expected. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Remember, the people who mock you today might be making payments to you tomorrow. Build smart, build quiet, build real. And when they finally realize what you've done, that's when you know you've won. I'll see you in the next story. Oh, and to my family, if you're watching this, your December payment is due in 5 days. Don't be late.